What is the greatest loss in human history? It could be the extinction of dinosaurs, the burning of Rome, sinking of the Titan. But some would say nothing compares to this. The loss of the Library of Alexandria. At its peak, it housed between 400 and 700,000 scrolls. Perhaps twice as many books as all the other libraries of the ancient world combined. Founded around 283 BC by one of the richest men who ever lived, Ptolemy I, who was also the general of Alexander the Great. The goal of the library was simple, yet grand, to hold all the world's knowledge. They developed mathematical proofs and geometric theorems that are still taught today. It was part of the Museum of Alexandria, which might best be compared to a big research institute like a modern university. Did you know the Rosetta Stone was actually brought back to Alexandria in 1801 before being shipped off to London in 1802? This port would eventually grow into what we know today as Alexandria. It became the largest and wealthiest city in the Mediterranean, second only to Rome. She was famous for her beauty, intellect, and charisma, as well as her tragic romance with Roman general Mark Antony and their untimely demise at the hands of Octavian, who would become the first emperor of Rome. Imagine standing before the stone in its original home. The mind boggles at the thousands of years of history surrounding you. Surrounding the library were lecture halls, gardens, and shrines to the gods. His sister had to co-rule with him, but not for long. When Cleopatra died, he took the throne alone. Fortunately, his reign would see the beginning of the end for the once great library. It wasn't just a tragedy for the people of Alexandria, or even Egypt, but a tremendous loss for the whole world. There are plenty of accusations flying around, but none of them tell the full story. Julius Caesar is often blamed. While fighting in the Alexandrian War, he set fire to a couple of ships in the harbor. Perhaps those fires spread out of control and damaged the library. But that doesn't explain why the locals would have hated Caesar. It seems a bit unfair to blame him. We know that the New Testament was probably saved because it wasn't written yet. But what else made it through? Only God knows for sure. Most of the library's holdings were likely destroyed, but some may have survived. Fortunately, these sources don't tell us much about the library's collection, focusing instead on the library's size and scope. What if some scrolls managed to escape the fire and were taken out of the city? The closest thing was the Library of Pergamum, created by the kings of the Attalid dynasty. Someone looking to write a fictional story set in ancient times would do well to include the library. Visitors in your story could go there to learn something new or search for a lost text. Copies of its texts likely survived in other libraries throughout the ancient world. For example, works translated into Greek were preserved in the libraries of Pergamum and Antioch. All horrible tragedies, but none compared to the loss of the Library of Alexandria. Some scholars believe these texts influenced Islamic Golden Age scholars like Al-Khwarizmi, who introduced Hindu-Arabic numerals to the West. Others believe the books were smuggled out of Alexandria and hidden away in private collections. Still, others think the books were simply lost, period. Or maybe they could be searching for a forbidden text. It was built in emulation of the Alexandrian library, but lacked the scope and ambition of its predecessor. Maybe they're sitting in some private collection, waiting to be discovered. He inherited a vast empire that stretched from Greece to India, as well as unimaginable wealth. The loss of irreplaceable texts could leave your character lamenting the loss of humanity. After all, thousands of years of wisdom and progress disappeared overnight. Plays, scientific theories, and histories are now known only by name or a few fragments that survived. After all, Christians weren't fond of paganism, a major factor in the destruction of classical antiquity. Some blame Caliph Omar, who led an invasion force of Muslims against the city. He supposedly wanted to destroy all pagan temples in the city, which may have included the library. The problem with blaming him is that the library burned down around 390 AD, almost 200 years before Omar arrived. Plus, he didn't even live in Alexandria, so he likely wasn't responsible for any damage done to the library. His solution, to burn down the city's quarter, destroying the library and museum in the process. Nothing like this had ever happened before. The world would never see anything like it again. In fact, he was arguably the richest man of his day. Ptolemy expanded the empire's borders and consolidated his power, keeping the peace and prosperity alive that Alexander had started. Without him, Egypt wouldn't have become such a cultural melting pot. Scholars could teach and debate while walking among the carefully tended plants and flowers, then retreat to the cool shade of the library to continue their research. Scholars came from miles around to study there, so much so that Alexandria became the intellectual heart of the ancient world. It became the epicenter of the ancient world, drawing some of the brightest minds from across the globe, men like Euclid, Archimedes, and Eratosthenes, who helped put it on the map. And the library wasn't just a place to store books. Many people have been to the British Museum and marveled at the Rosetta Stone, slab of rock inscribed with hieroglyphics that allowed archaeologists to translate ancient Egyptian texts. The museum was founded by Ptolemy II, the second ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty after Alexander the Great's death. He established a port city named after him, Ptolemy, where sailors could dock and resupply, where merchants could buy and sell goods. But this prosperity didn't last forever. After Ptolemy's death, internal strife weakened the dynasty. Eventually, Cleopatra ascended to the throne. Cleopatra's brother, Ptolemy XIII, was hardly as capable as his father. During his rule, civil war erupted, and the citizens of Alexandria rose up against him. No one knows exactly how the library burned or why. Some blame Christian mobs. In reality, there isn't a single person or event that can be blamed. It was most likely a combination of everything and more. The true extent of the collection is unknown. We only know the range because historians have argued about it for years. It held writings from every corner of the ancient world. Books were translated into Greek and studied, and then summaries of those works were written for those too poor to read. These summaries are our only glimpse into some works today. The library boasted copies of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, Plato's Republic, all of Shakespeare's plays, as well as many others. There were also maps and astronomical charts preserved in the library that were thought to be unrivaled throughout the ancient world. Many books were copied in their entirety. Historians know this because several complete copies of the same book were found. Scholars were encouraged to quote from the books as they pleased. If they broke a rule by taking notes, they could simply pay a fine, which everyone could afford. The only limit was how many books a person could read in a lifetime. One of the goals of the founders was to get every book ever written into the library. To achieve this, the Ptolemaic rulers ordered all ships entering the harbor to surrender their manuscripts for copying. After making copies, the originals were returned. That way, the work was preserved, but the copy stayed in Alexandria. But if a ship carrying an extremely rare book were to sink, the library would gain another prized possession. Sadly, we will never know what treasures were lost when the library burned to the ground. We do know that papyrus scrolls were stored on shelves up high, while clay tablets and wax tablets were kept in rooms on the lower level. A few books did survive. How we know about the library today is thanks to the writings of ancient historians like Pliny the Elder, Strabo, and Athenaeus. After its destruction, no one tried to replace it. Despite its demise, the Library of Alexandria continues to fascinate the modern world. It has inspired countless writers, artists, and filmmakers. For writers looking for realism, the library's destruction could make for a powerful scene. Even though the library was lost, its influence endured. Whatever happened, we can never know the true extent of the loss. So what is the greatest loss in human history? Is it the death of dinosaurs, the burning of Rome, or the sinking of the Titanic?